My name is Jean-Christophe Burkhardt, and on my visit to Paris, I came across this wonderful place. It is Fort Royal. It is a place that specializes in the finest craftsmanship France has to offer. Let's go inside and meet Jacques Bolelli. Hello, Jacques.
Christophe.
Lovely
Good
to
to
meet
see
you.
you.
Thank
Good
you.
to see you. Welcome.
Thank you very much. So this is Jacques Bolelli, who is the founder, designer, and specialist in fine craftsmanship. And by chance, I saw your window from the outside the other day and was really excited by what I saw.
Great.
I understand that you represent a number of very fine artisans.
7 of them, actually.
7 of them.
Yep.
That's
6 of them in decoration.
right.
So,
And the 7th?
The 7th is an antique, fine French weaponry,
Wow.
which is for collectors of very special hunting guns. We do 2 pieces a year. It's the very last artisan in France doing that, entirely by hand. Of course, there's still artisans, but the only one doing it entirely by hand.
Okay. Okay.
So, but that's a bit out of the decoration field.
Yes, you specialize in artisans that work within the interior design field, within the architectural field.
Absolutely, absolutely. We have started actually with a quite prestigious one, which was a company that was slowing down, to say it mildly, even though it had a terrific product, which is the planter, the orange tree planter of the Versailles Castle. So they were the sole manufacturer. Funny story, actually. The young guy, had been hired when he was 14 as a keysmith and an ironsmith, and he redesigned the famous Le Nôtre, the Gardner planter for the orangerie, and started doing them, and lots of them, and then he quit after something like 40, 50 years and started his own business, still producing for the castle, but exporting them throughout the world. We have some in Australia, by the way.
Wow, wow.
I think they're
is
present in...
is it right that there's this one here?
Yeah.
So yes, tell me more.
Well, if you want to see one, there's a full one outside on the pavement.
Yes. Oh, wow.
Not very clean, I'm afraid.
Yes.
But the planter is the original Versailles planter. And as you can see, it's branded Chateau Versailles, which is we're the only ones allowed to use that brand because we do the very exact thing. There are many, many copies of that in various materials, but we're the only ones doing it in cast iron and naturally dried oak. So it's a quite unique horticultural tool. That's the idea of the thing. It opens here.
Oh, I see.
You can open it and cure the plants, maintain your wood panel, which anyway would last 10 years without maintenance, but need every now and then, every 10 years, sort of basic maintenance. And then you can cure your plants, because many planters, when they're not well designed, you see them inflating and then boom, exploding. That kills both the planter and the tree. So we sell those now in, I think, 36 countries in the world. They're in a lot of famous places, and all the major palaces in Paris, in the presidential palace, in many embassies, places like that, in front of the Dior boutiques also. They all have 2. And we've got various designs. This is one done for the interior in Chinese lacquer.
Yes, this is a lovely example of chinoiserie.
Exactly, that's after a chinoiserie done by a very famous French lacquer maker called Mideven. Beautiful company.
And the chinoiserie has a really interesting story because it came when Marco Polo brought all these designs and silks from China into Europe. The court of Louis XV, if I remember right, were fascinated by Chinese designs.
Absolutely.
And we now have a television, and an iPad to travel the world with, or we can catch a plane. But in those days, the exotic designs were so exciting, and that was the only way they could really experience the exoticism of the newly discovered world. I can see here another example with a wonderful kind of a smoky glass quality.
Yeah.
And I understand that it's layers and layers of colors. Each one is baked again, and it is a huge process.
Yeah, and I can't tell you for whom this is because I've signed a non-disclosure agreement, but you'd be surprised. That's for a very famous film star.
Okay.
So,
we go.
which shows that if you have proper, but we need the interior designer, we need the architects for that because it's really a collaboration.
Yeah.
So if you've got the proper inspiration and the proper craftsman, you can create things with antique crafts for very modern decoration. You were mentioning layers. Basically, these glasses are done. That's an interesting example. These glasses are done. I don't know if you can see it like that, but it looks white here.
Yeah.
It's pink, and actually it's mouth-blown glass from a white bowl, dipped into a red fusion red glass, turned into a huge tube, then laid on the table, cut, open while it's still hot, then cut on the sides, and it becomes a square of about 60 centimeters with two colors. And what you do then is you can try and play with the two coats so that you can either completely erase the top coat, which gives you the white here, or dim it with acid sketching, or do both, which gives you the opportunity to do a lot of interesting decoration that comes back now into fashion, into modern decoration, things like that. All right, I can show you a book, or I'll show you later photographies of a beautiful church we've done with that. Extremely contemporary art in a completely Gothic cathedral.
Wow.
So that was a challenge. Not everybody liked it, but many people thought it was extraordinary and interesting. Two things. We do classical things. This is very classical. That's a reproduction. I certainly will not try to pretend it's one of our creations. It's a famous statue by Udon. Udon did 4 seasons, and this is winter. Now, it's one of the only crafts in which we involve a very modern way of production and ancient techniques. As you know, many stone artists were doing 90% of their work by their pupils, and they were finishing.
That's right.
All the bulk work. Rodin was just finishing the statues. Now, you can do that without cheating because it's the final hand that counts. So this is actually done by a 5-axis robot, but there's many details you can't do with a robot, especially go inside and back. So all the face, for instance, has been totally hand carved. All the drapes and the end of the fingers and everything. But the basic thing was prepared like by the pupil of a stone maker, but by a robot. This stoneware vases also. You can see those vases everywhere because they are copies of the Versailles Castle classical model. You can find them in resina, in ugly materials like plastic. You can sometimes find them in what they call artificial stone, which is actually resin and stone powder.
Reconstituted stone.
Exactly,
yes.
Reconstituted stone. Sometimes you find them in cheap limes, but not extremely well carved. This one is done out of one block, one cube,
Wow.
entirely prepared by a robot and then hand carved, and you can see the smoothness here. You could never
Yes.
obtain that smoothness.
Yes.
And it's not that, and by the way, this is one of our garden products by Jardin du Roi Soleil, our brand who does the planters and everything. We also do the Versailles benches. We don't have them here because they're very massive. But we took a point of selecting 2 ancient models of 18th century benches from Versailles that were not existing anymore, recreating them and doing them one by one to measures. So they're all handmade.
So everybody can have a piece of a Versailles garden in their backyard. This is the area where you can show us some of the furniture.
Yep.
I can see here we have a very, very fine example of a late 1930, would that be?
Yep, yeah, it's actually a very exact reproduction of a Hullman.
Ah, yes.
The only difference is that this is not ivory, it's cow bone, because Hullman used ivory, so we don't. But apart from that, it's a very typical Hullman. We do a lot of Art Deco, and you can see lots of little details that nobody bothers to do anymore, like this.
Yes.
Like numbering, all this, what we call queue d'aronde.
Yes, these are dovetails.
Dovetails, exactly.
Yeah, and these have been hand cut.
Yep.
And they're beautifully done. You can just see it here. And what's unusual too, this is done at the back as well. The other nice thing about it is the bottom of the drawer is solid, and they've allowed an expansion. This little screw here allows the timber to expand and contract without cracking, which happens on some of the less well made.
I can see you're an expert. Nobody notices that little screw.
Well, being a cabinet maker myself.
Yeah, oh, of course, yes.
So this is, and it's really beautifully done and beautifully polished. You can see, just barely see the lines of the hand rubbing. So this has been gently hand rubbed to really bring the sheen.
Absolutely.
And inside you can see the contrasting timber, which is a lovely touch. This is a mix of a very fine mahogany, would that be right?
Yeah.
And yes, and even this detail here with a concealed channel is really quite wonderful. Beautiful leg, which you can see some of the almost post-classical, after the Louis XVI and the Directoire, you still have these lines which are really about elevating and thinning to create this elegant quality. And the very fine detail of every corner. You can see the direction of the veneer here has been followed. So here it goes this way, and here the veneer, they could have saved time by going that way, but they've cut it. So there is this feeling of continuation. And those are the little detail.
Exactly. And that is why we need people to be able to explain that, decorators, architects, people like you who are experts in that field, because otherwise the client say, but how come this, I won't say the country, other country maker does the same one for half the price? It's not the same one. But details like that do a great difference. If you look at that very typical Marie-Antoinette desk here, one of our iconic pieces.
So really,
nobody has been trying to. Nobody else does it actually. We're the only ones doing the amount because it's too difficult. It's actually that's interesting. It's the mother of pearl is Australian.
Yeah.
Because that's where we found the best color. So
there you go. It's an amazing marriage of metalwork, of cabinet work. This is the gallery, or the little gallery, and you can actually see the quality and the detail. Very classical of the period, and the mother of pearl inlay is flawlessly done. I understand the original is in
Fontainebleau.
In Fontainebleau.
It's actually the Queen Marie-Antoinette desk. Two other queens have it now. Can't say which, but two queens have it. One of them being done is here on that picture, but as you can see, it's gilded. That is the exact reproduction, except for one detail, which is completely anachronical. It's not gilded. We've done it in silver rather than gold.
Yeah.
And one of our clients say, why did you do it in silver, to make it cheaper? We said, no, it's the same price. It's just that it's an innovation to try and make it either more sober not difficult, because being more sober than that is not difficult, but also to sort of give it a modern touch. That's another interesting piece. I was telling you that we've got 8,000 original pieces in that company of cast. That one didn't exist, the original, nobody knows where it is, it's disappeared, it's been probably used, welded, melted, whatever. So we went to the museum, made many pictures of it, wood carved it, and lost waxed it. And we now have the 8001 model, because as I was telling you, anytime we do a new one, we keep the master model.
And this is quite extraordinary, because to do it, this tambour desk, to do it, to do the mother of pearl in this curve is actually very difficult, and probably would have required some very special substances to soften the mother of pearl to be able to achieve that. I understand that's one of the well-kept secrets.
Absolutely.
Of your very fine cabinet maker.
Twisting the marquetries in both directions is very difficult. We've got this designer, I'll show you unfortunately in the photo, but who asked us for a surfboard looking bench in marquetry, and the way it was done, it's a famous designer, Jean-Marc Gady. The way it's been done is by a mix of heating and softening with substances. I'll show you what the piece is. If you look at it without thinking, it just looks like an ordinary bench, but if you realize as a cabinet maker how it was actually marketed, you see that? The marquetry and the veneer is bent that way and that way, which is practically impossible to do without a floor.
Yeah, yeah.
So that involves many things, including a hairdryer.
I'd love to have a look at inside of the Marie-Antoinette desk and to see if there are any secrets of her life. So here we have a beautiful leather insert with gold, with silver tooling. What a beautiful color. And again, the Louis XVI motif in these beautiful drawers. And here we have another drawer. So,
which you cannot open when the cylinder is closed.
Oh,
so
right.
You need one key. Because you close the cylinder, take the cylinder key, and then the rest doesn't open.
That's very, very clever.
There's a lock in the back.
And this is a beautiful finish on this sort of silver grey patina to go really well. And this deep oxblood color is such a good contrast. And then we have these little teal or eau de Nil little balls, which are quite amazing. So there are two other queens that now have this. I hope they won't end up with the same problem as Marie-Antoinette did. So here we have another piece, which is
very classical little desk.
Yes.
Very classical. One interesting thing on that piece is the chiseling of those the little flowers. Yeah,
that's gorgeous.
And by the way, the whole model we have also is integrating various businesses together. And I was telling you about the bronze maker who does the gallery. This is Renaud, the bronze maker, and this is Cramont Lagarde, the cabinet maker. And now we own both companies, so they can work together.
And it's wonderful. There's another little detail that shows the really good cabinet maker. If you look at these tiny screws, first of all, they're the traditional slot, but the slot is all in the same direction on all of them. And that is somebody who is very proud of that work would do that. And that's what I mean by an artisan by spirit, is somebody who always wants to do better and better. And I think in some way, this is why I am so moved in many ways by what fine craftsmanship and artisans are, because they are devoted to a betterment, to a refinement, to an ever more finer aesthetic. And I think in some ways that represents the highest function, the highest meaning of what it is to be human, is to bring beauty, to devote oneself to beauty, is such a wonderful thing. The other element that also I think in some ways distinguishes the artist from the craftsman, though I know they need to be both, I agree with that as well, is the fact that an artisan often makes their own tools, treasures their own tools, and works at improving their tools.
Yep.
And even their tools become a work of art, an evolution.